Welcome to Heart Over Gold, the channel where love, kindness, and humanity shine brighter than any fortune. In today's story, he walked into the hospital expecting a routine meeting. What he found instead was his ex-wife cradling a baby that looked just like him. Years after their painful separation, a single moment would change everything he thought he knew about love, loss, and fatherhood. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments, and keep up with our latest stories. The city buzzed below as the sun broke through heavy clouds, casting a golden light over London's skyline. In his sleek, glass-walled office on the 20th floor, Matthew Thorne stood still, eyes fixed on the horizon. For most, this would be just another Monday. For him, it marked the start of something big, something that could change everything. "Mr. Thorne, I need your signature to initiate the new hospital wing project," his secretary called out gently, holding a stack of official-looking documents. Matthew didn't turn right away. Adjusting his tie, he exhaled deeply and said, "Leave them on my desk. I'll look at them shortly." He grabbed his briefcase and glanced at the clock. 9:30 a.m. sharp. He had a critical meeting scheduled at St. Luke's Hospital. This was no ordinary meeting. It was a presentation that could seal the biggest project of his career. As his black Mercedes cruised through the streets, Matthew mentally rehearsed every detail. $15 million. That was the figure attached to the most ambitious expansion St. Luke's had ever seen. If successful, the project would elevate his construction firm's reputation beyond anything he had achieved so far. When he arrived, his assistant Sarah was already waiting by the hospital entrance. The investors are in the boardroom on the 3rd floor, she informed him as they walked briskly inside. "But Dr. Wilson asked that you first take a look at the proposed build site." Matthew frowned. "Can't that wait? I have the whole project mapped out already," she insisted. "Said it was important for you to visualize the space before the presentation," Sarah replied, her tone respectful but firm. Matthew gave a reluctant sigh. "Fine, let's get it over with." They walked through a series of long, white corridors until they reached the maternity wing. The scent of disinfectant and antiseptic filled the air, oddly sharp and familiar. It made Matthew's stomach twist. This was the part of the hospital he had hoped never to revisit. Then, without warning, he saw her. Alina. She stood quietly beside a bassinet, gently cradling a tiny baby. Her brown hair was tied back, her nurse's uniform neat and crisp. Her expression was soft, full of care, as she watched the newborn. The sight of her hit Matthew like a shockwave. His steps halted, his breath caught. As if sensing him, Elena looked up, their eyes locked. The world around them seemed to stop. "Matthew," she whispered, instinctively drawing the baby closer to her chest. Her voice trembled, a blend of surprise and something deeper, something buried. What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "I work here," she said softly. In the neonatal intensive care unit, an awkward silence followed, thick and tense. Sarah shifted uneasily beside him, sensing something wasn't right. "Mr. Thorne, the investors." "Just a moment," he interrupted, eyes never leaving Alina or the baby. Is he yours?" he asked, his voice low but heavy with emotion. Elena's expression tightened. She shook her head. "No, Matthew, he's not mine. He was abandoned this morning at the hospital entrance." Matthew blinked, suddenly remembering how to breathe again. Still, the knot in his chest didn't ease. 2 years had passed since they last spoke, yet standing there now felt like time had folded in on itself. Sarah tried again. "Mr. Thorne, we're running late." "I'm coming," he said shortly, turning his face away, though part of him remained rooted in place. He glanced once more at Alina. She was looking down again, her hands gently rocking the baby. "We need to talk," he said firmly, but with a quiet edge. "There's nothing left to say, Matthew," she replied without looking at him. "We said it all 2 years ago." His fists tightened, his jaw clenched. Without another word, he followed Sarah toward the boardroom, but his mind stayed behind with Alina and that baby. The meeting was a blur. Words passed him by. Presentations, numbers, future projections, all meaningless echoes compared to the storm inside his head. "The investors were impressed," Sarah said as they left the room. "But you seem distracted." "I need a moment," he muttered. "Where's the restroom?" Inside, he splashed cold water on his face and stared at his reflection. The confident billionaire staring back looked the same, but inside, he felt like someone else. Someone exposed, unsteady. Without hesitation, he left the restroom and made his way back through the maze of corridors. He found Alina alone in the nurse's break room, reviewing some forms. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly from the doorway. Alina looked up. I'm working, just 5 minutes please. She sighed and placed her pen down. What do you want to talk about? How you vanished after our divorce? Or how you ignored every message I sent about finalizing paperwork? Matthew entered and sat across from her. I know I was a coward, he admitted. But seeing you today, holding that baby, don't, Alina cut him off. Don't use the baby as an excuse to reopen old wounds. His name is Leo, by the way, and I'm only doing my job. Since when do you work here? He asked. For a year now, she answered. After I sold the apartment you left me, I needed a fresh start. A new hospital, a new chapter. Silence fell again, thick with unspoken memories. Do you remember the last time we were in a hospital? Matthew asked gently. Don't do this, Alina whispered, her voice trembling. It was after our third IVF attempt, he continued. When we lost the baby, you buried yourself in work after that, she said, her voice flat. Like building skyscrapers would somehow fill the space our child never got to occupy. Elena, no, Matthew. I don't need your pity, or late apologies. It's been 2 years. I've healed. I've moved on. Just then the door opened. A young nurse stepped in. Alina, Leo's crying. He won't take his bottle. Alina stood quickly. I have to go. Can we talk later? Matthew asked, rising. There's nothing left to say. This is a hospital, not a therapy session. Let's keep things professional, she replied. She paused at the door. And please, don't bring up the past again. It hurts less when it stays buried. He watched her walk away, her white uniform blending into the bustling hospital hallway. She was gone, again, and yet, this time, something in him refused to let go. I'm sorry, Alina murmured. I got carried away. Your arguments are valid, Matthew said, surprising her. In fact, I had already considered that. In the budget, what the abandoned baby wing will be funded by a special fund. It won't depend on the investors alone. Looked at him confused. Why? Because it's the right thing to do, he replied, gathering his documents, and because someone taught method. Everyone deserves a chance. He left the room, leaving Eleanor speechless. Michelle smiled slightly. People change. The doctors said sometimes they just need time, or an abandoned baby. Elena murmured, looking at blueprints on the table. The hospital cafe was almost empty. Matthew stirred his coffee without drinking it while Alina sat across from him, her hands wrapped around her cup. Thanks for agreeing to talk to me, he said. I'm not doing it for you. Alina replied, I'm doing it for the project. I need to know if you're really going to follow through on what you said about the abandoned Edby area. I have everything in writing. I can show you the documents. Why, Matthew, we now do. I need a reason to do something good. You always have a reason. There's always a hidden motive. Matthew put the spoon down on the table. Seeing Leo made me think, don't bring Leo into this. It's the truth. Alina, seeing how you care for him, how I would have cared for our son. The silence grew dense between them. When I suggested adopting, Alina continued, you said it wasn't the Sami that you wanted, your own blood, your own surname. I was an idiot, were you? I'm still an idiot, but at least now I know. Alina took a sip of coffee. You know what's the worst part? That we didn't even fight. You just drifted away. Dinners alone turned into dinners with clients. Nights together turned into nights at the office. Work was an excuse, Matthew admitted. I was scared of what? Of not being enough, of failing you like I failed you with. Don't say it. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter anymore. Alina said, standing up. I have to go back. Leo needs his medicine. Alina, if you really want to do something good, keep your word with the project. Those babies need a dignified place. I will. I promise you. Don't promise me anything. Promise it, Totham. Alina left, leaving Matthew alone with his cold coffee and his touts. Through the cafe window, he could see the structure where the new wing would be built, meters of concrete and glass that he hoped could begin to repair some of what he had broken. Amitha's confession, a son's revelation. Your mother is here, Sarah announced over the intercom. Matthew barely had time to look up when Mrs. Eleanor Thorne already entered his office, elegant as always in her tailored suit. To what do I owe the visit? Matthew asked. Does a mother need reasons to see her son? You always have reasons. Mom Eleanor sat across from the desk. Michelle told me about the hospital project. Since when do you talk to Michelle? Since always. She was the one who attended me when what? Eleanor sighed deeply. When we adopted you, son. Matthew felt as if the air had left the room. What? I was 25 years old. I couldn't have children. Your father and I tried everything just like you. And Lena, no, it can't be. Michelle was a young resident. Then she helped us with the process. Matthew stood up abruptly. Why are you telling me this now? Because you need to know. Because I saw how you looked at Alina with contempt when she suggested adopting. That was different. Why? Because I'm not your real mother. No, you are my mother. Exactly. Lena smiled. Just like you could have been the real father to any child you adopted. Matthew sank into his chair. Dad knows your father was the one who insisted on the adoption, he said. That love builds families, not blood. Why did you never tell me at first? Because you were very young later. I suppose Thiemerman never seemed right. Matthew remembered all the times he had boasted about the porn lineage, about the family blood, about the importance of the surname Alina. He murmured, Eleanor understood this better than you. Eleanor said she sees every day how love has nothing to do with biology. I have to go, Matthew said, standing up. I need to think, son, Eleanor called him before he left. Don't make the mistake of confusing blood with love. Her father and I loved you from the first moment. We saw you just as you could have loved. Please. Mum, I need to be alone. He left the office and drove aimlessly through the city. He ended up without really being surprised in the hospital parking lot. From there, he could see the Nico window where he knew Alina would be caring for Leo. His phone rang. It was a message from Michelle. Your mother told me when you want to talk, you know where to find me. Matthew found Michelle in her office reviewing files despite the late hour. How many others knew? He asked from the doorway. Only me and Dr. Green, who has passed away. Michelle replied without looking up. Sit down. Alina never know and never told her it wasn't my place. Matthew sank into the chair. You were a precious baby. Michelle smiled. Elena couldn't stop crying when she put you in her arms. And the woman who gave birth to me. She was very young. She wanted you to have a better life like Leo's mother. Every story is different, Matthew. But yes, love sometimes means letting go. Down the hallway they heard Elena's voice singing softly. She was doing her night rounds. Did you know she's applying to adopt Leo? Michelle asked. Matthew looked at her in surprise. Would it still in process? The social worker will come next week for the final assessment. But Kansha, I mean, she's single and times have changed. Matthew, and Alina has everything in her favor. Stable job, her own home, excellent references. Her own home, yes, the apartment. You left her. She completely renovated it. The guest room is now a nursery. Matthew remembered that room. They had painted it together years ago, dreaming of the baby that never came. She was always ready, he murmured. And you weren't. Michelle completed, but that doesn't make you a bad person. Just someone who needed time to understand certain things. Like what? Like familiar scum in all shapes and sizes. Like love doesn't need shared DNA. Like sometimes the best parents are the ones who choose to be parents, not the ones who are by accident. Alina passed in front of Theophis, gently rocking Leo. She didn't see them. She looks happy, Matthew said. She is, Michelle replied. She found her way. The question is, Gemma, have you found yours? Matthew stood up. Thanks, Michelle. Why for keeping the secret, for taking care of Alina, for everything. Go home. Matthew, it's been a long day in the parking lot. Matthew looked one last time towards the illuminated window where Alina was caring for Leo. He wondered if his father had felt that way 35 years ago. Looking through another hospital window, waiting to take home a baby who didn't share his blood but who would fill his life with love. What profound impact will this have on Matthew's choices going forward? Will he finally embrace a new understanding of family and love? Hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Old walls, new foundations. The thorns always build forth future. His father's voice said in the corporate video. Matthew watched it from his computer in his darkened office. Sarah interrupted from theater way. The contractors are waiting for your signature to begin demolition at the hospital. Has the area been evacuated? Yes, the NICU has been temporarily relocated to the 3rd floor. Matthew closed his laptop. Alina did. Nurse Smith agreed to thorough location. In fact, she organized everything. She says as long as the babies are safe, the rest is just typical of her. Matthew murmured, pardon, nothing. Bring their documents. As he signed, he remembered the conversation with his mother, the once family legacy, all built on a truth hidden for decades. His phone vibrated. It was a message from Alina. We need to talk about the modified blueprints. I'm going to the hospital, he announced, standing up at the board meeting. Reschedule everything at the hospital. He felt Lena in the temporary unit, checking the facilities. The electrical connections aren't enough. Shed without greeting him. I know it's temporary. A baby in an incubator doesn't understand temporary, Matthew. That's why I brought this. She held out a roll of blueprints. Emergency modifications. We can reinforce the electrical system today. Alina reviewed the blueprints. When? Last night. I couldn't sleep. Why? Matthew hesitated for a moment. Did you know I'm adopted? Alina looked up, surprised. What I found out yesterday. Mimitha Michelle was there when Matthew. All this time, Alina, all those times I talked about family lineage, about the importance of thorn blood. Stop, Alina said softly. Don't do this. Do what you said this as a way to, I don't know, redeem yourself or something. It's not that. Then what is it? Matthew looked through the window. Several babies slept in their bassinets. It's understanding for that. I was wrong, that you were right, that a family. Matthew, please, 2 years shave past. I've already made my decision with Leo. I know, and I'm happy for you, for both of you. Alina looked at him intently searching for any sign of Ali. In his words, I just want to do the right thing, he added, for these babies, for the hospital, for everything I didn't do before. Good, Alina replied after a moment. Then let's start with those electrical connections. Demolitions start tomorrow, Matthew announced at the staff meeting. The process will take 3 weeks. The doctors and nurses listened attentively as he pointed to their blueprints projected on the wall. What if they find structural problems? Ellen asked from the back of the room. We have contingency plans, Matthew replied. We won't take risks with patients. Michelle observed the exchange with interest. The tension between them had changed. It had transformed into something more professional, more mature. After the meeting, Matthew stayed to collect his documents. The social worker is coming today, Michelle commented, approaching. I know. How do you know? Elena's been more nervous than usual, and she's been staying late for 3 days, organizing documents. You know her well. I used to, Matthew corrected. Now it's different. Different, better, or different, worse, just different. A knock on the door interrupted the conversation. It was Sarah. Mr. Thorne, they found something during the preliminary inspection. What? You'd better come see. In the demolition area, a group of workers surrounded a uncovered wall. It's part of the original structure, explained the foreman. From when this was a convent more than 100 years ago. Does it affect the construction plans? Matthew asked. We'd have to modify the entire design to preserve it. How much would it delay the project? 2 months minimum, Matthew observed. The ancient wall, the exposed bricks, told a story of care and service that dated back generations. Do it, he ordered. Modify the prints. This wall stays. But sir, the additional cost. Some things are worth preserving, Matthew interrupted. This hospital has history. Let's respect it. From the hallway, Alina observed the scene for a moment. Her eyes met. Matthew nodded slightly before turning and returning to the NICU, where the social worker was waiting for her for the final interview. A crisis and a shared vigil. Leo has a fever, Alina announced, leaning over the incubator. 102.22 F. Night had fallen over the hospital, and the noise of construction machinery had finally ceased. The antibiotics should be taking. Jeffict, Dr. Brown replied, checking the chart. Something's not right, Elena insisted. His breathing is very rapid. At that moment the monitors began to beep. He's convulsing, Alina cried. Everything became a whirlwind of activity. Doctors running, shouted orders, the sharp sound of alarms. Matthew, who was checking the progress of the construction on the floor below, heard the code blue over the loudspeakers. Nike, you code blue. Without thinking, he ran up the stairs. When he arrived, he saw Alina through the glass, performing compressions on Leo's tiny chest. Come on, little one, he heard her murmur. Don't give up. The minutes dragged on like hours. Finally the cardiac monitor returned to a normal rhythm. Alina came out of the room exhausted, and was surprised to see Matthew. What are you doing here? I heard the code, he replied. He's stable, Elena sighed. For now. She sank into a chair, trembling slightly. Matthew took off his jacket and put it over her shoulders. The social worker, Alina began. She approved it, Matthew interrupted. She'd be an idiot if she didn't. How can you be so sure, Beckers? I saw you in there. Because anyone who sees you with him, Matthew nodded. Me finish. You're the best mother Leo could have, and I say that as someone who knows about extraordinary adoptive mothers. Alina looked at him, surprised by vulnerability in his voice. The flowers, she said suddenly. What? The flowers at the NICU entrance? They're the same ones I used to have at home. Sunflowers. Oh, that. Matthew scratched the back of his neck, uncomfortable. The landscaper asked what flowers to put. And thank you, Elena, for remembering. There are many things I remember, Alina. The silence he thought followed was different from previous ones, less tense, more thoughtful. I need to go back to Leo, Alina finally said, taking off his jacket. Of course. And Alina, yes, he's going to be okay. Both of them will be. Alina nodded and returned to the unit. Matthew stayed a moment longer, looking through the glass as she gently arranged the blankets around the baby. The sunflowers at the entrance were reflected in the window, silent witnesses to a new type, often standing between two people who once shared everything, a new family, a lasting legacy. The adoption was approved, Michelle announced, entering Matthew's temporary office at the hospital. Alina already knows. They'll tell her officially this afternoon. But yes, Leo will legally be her son. Matthew put down blueprints he was reviewing. Good, they deserve it. You know, Alina asked that the waiting area in the new plans be modified. Why? She wants a space for parents to be close to their children without interfering with medical work. She says waiting is the hardest part. I already modified it, Matthew replied. I added an area with reclining chairs and a small kitchenette. When a week ago it was obvious it was needed. Michelle smiled. Have you changed, Matthew? No. I just see things differently. A knock on the door interrupted the conversation. It was Alina. I interrupting, she asked. Not at all, Michelle replied, standing up. In fact, I was just leaving when they were alone. Alina approached the desk. The social worker gave me the final papers. She said, showing him a folder. Congratulations, thank you, Elliot. For a moment, there's something I want to ask you. What is it? Why through the ancient wall? Yes, I know preserving it is delaying the whole project. Matthew stood up and walked to the window. From there they could see through partially demolished structure, with the centenary wall still standing. When I was a child, he began, my father brought me here. He showed me this hospital and told him, son, we don't just build buildings, we build places where life happens. I didn't understand what he meant until now. And what did he mean? That some things are worth more than money or time, that there are stories that deserve to be preserved. Alina also approached the window. Leo is better now, she said. The fever hasn't returned. I know, I read their reports every day. Why does it matter to me? Because even if we're not, even if things are different, what matters to you matters to me. Alina looked at him for a long time. At war, she finally said, reminds me of us, how something ancient that survived despite changes, different but still standing. Alina, no, it's okay, it's better this way, different but not destroyed. She walked away from the window and headed towards the door. The adoption ceremony is on Friday, she said. Leaving. If you want to come, I'll be there, Matthew replied. Alina nodded and left, leaving behind the echo of an invitation that months ago would have been unthinkable. The ceremony and a silent promise. The social services office smelled of old paper and stale coffee. Eleanor waited while the social worker, Ms. Johnson, reviewed the documents one last time. Everything seems to be in order, she finally said. Wait, just need one last signature here. Alina took the pen with a trembling hand. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Are you sure about this, Ms. Johnson asked. Being a single mother isn't easy. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. There's one more thing, the social worker added. We received an additional letter of recommendation. From whom? From Mr. Matthew Thorne. He says you were the most capable person he knows to be a mother. Alina froze, the pen suspended over the paper. No, she didn't know, she didn't have to know. But it weighed heavily on the final decision. It's not common for a businessman of his level to take the time to write something like that. Alina signed the document, blinking back tears. Leo Smith. Ms. Johnson read, beautiful name. It was my grandfather's name, Eleanor replied. A man who believed that family is much more than blood. Back at the hospital, she found Matthew supervising the construction. Why did you do it? She asked directly. Do what? The letter of recommendation. Matthew put down the blueprints he was reviewing. Because it was the right thing to do. Because you deserved to be happy. I didn't need your help. I know I didn't do it to help you. Because it's the truth. They looked at each other in silence, the noise of the construction as a backdrop. Friday, Alina finally said, the ceremony is at 11 o'clock. I know, I already asked for the day off. Alina nodded and turned away, but stopped before leaving. Matthew. Yes, thank you. The word floated between them, heavy with meaning. Bear. Alina disappeared down the hallway towards the NICU where Leo awaited her. Matthew remained staring at the empty space where she had been, thinking of all the letters he never wrote, of all the truths he never spoke, and how sometimes love means letting go and supporting from afar. The night before the adoption ceremony, Matthew couldn't sleep. From his window, he saw the lights of London twinkle like fallen stars. His phone rang. It was Sarah. Sir, there's an emergency at the hospital. What happened? A water leak damaged part of the electrical system. In the temporary NICU area. Matthew was already putting on his jacket. I'm on my way. When he arrived at the hospital, he found Alina evacuating the babies. The emergency generator is failing, she explained as she moved an incubator. Leo and two other babies need constant power. Where are you taking them? To the south wing, but it's full. There aren't enough connections. Matthew observed the situation. My temporary office, he suddenly said, has its own generator. Fourth construction. Computers. Are you sure? Completely. Let's go. They worked together for the next few hours, moving equipment, connecting cables, making sure every baby was stable. At 3 o'clock in the morning, everything was finally under control. Lene sank into a chair next to Leo's incubator. In a few hours he'll be my son, she murmured. He's already your son, Matthew replied. The paper just makes it legal. Do you remember when we used to stay up like this? Alina asked, planning the future, taking about babies. Alina. Nah, it's okay. It's different now. Everything is different. Leo stirred in his incubator, making soft noises. He looks like you, Matthew said. What? When he sleeps he makes the same gestures you do? Elena smiled. Babies learn from those who care for them, like I learned from my parents, Matthew added. From my adoptive parents. They fell silent, watching Leo sleep. The lights of the monitors blinked softly like fireflies in the darkness. You should go rest, Matthew finally said. Tomorrow is an important day. Will you stay with him? Yes, go easy. Elena stood up and walked towards the door. Before leaving she turned. Sometimes, said softly, things don't turn out as we plan, but that doesn't mean they turn out wrong. Matthew nodded, and Alina disappeared into the hospital night, leaving him alone with Leo and with the thought that sometimes love has strange ways of manifesting itself, like nocturnal butterflies seeking the light's inauguration and a new chapter. The day dawned clear and bright. The courthouse ceremony room was full of people, hospital staff, Elena's family, some close friends. Nervous, Michelle asked, sitting next to Matthew in the last row. Why would I be nervous? It's not my ceremony, no, but it's an end. And a burgeoning Alina entered with Leo in her arms. The baby wore a small white suit. Thought made him look like a tiny angel. The social worker accompanied her with final documents. Please rise, the judge announced as he listened to the formal proceedings. Matthew remembered another ceremony years ago when his parents finally told him about his adoption. He was 12 years old, and his biggest concern had been whether he could still call them mum and dad. Of course, his father had said love needs no explanations. The judge's voice brought him back to the present. Alina Smith, do you accept all the legal and moral responsibilities that come with being Leo's mother? Yes, I accept, Alina replied firmly. By the power vested in me by law, I declare the official Leo is now legally and permanently yours. And applause filled the room. Alina hugged Leo, tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks. Matthew silently got up and walked towards the exit. In the hallway he met his mother. Are you leaving so soon? Eleanor asked. My part here is done. Your part? What do you think your part was, son? Matthew looked towards the room where Alina was receiving hugs. And congratulations. To learn, he finally replied, to learn that sometimes love means letting go, as you and Dad taught me. Eleanor took his hand, and as Leo's birther taught Alina, the circle continues, son. Matthew nodded and walked towards the elevators, carrying with him the image of Alina and Leo. A new family, formed not by blood but by choices, by love. The inauguration of their new pavilion will be in 2 weeks, Matthew announced at the final meeting. I want everything perfect. The contractors nodded, reviewing the latest modifications. The ancient wall had been perfectly integrated into the modern design, creating a contrast that told the hospital story. Alina, Nurse Smith, asked for a tour beforehand. Sarah informed him why she wants to make sure everything works for the babies. You know how she is, with details. Matthew smiled, slightly shuddered. It for tomorrow in the temporary unit. Alina prepared Leo to go home. The baby had grown strong and healthy in recent weeks. Ready for tomorrow's tour? Michelle asked, entering the unit. I need to make sure everything is okay. Alina replied, the connections, the ventilation, the space design is excellent. Matthew made sure of that. Alina picked up Leo, who juggled happily. I know it's different now. Different how? More professional, as if we had finally found our place with each other. Michelle watched as Alina prepared Leo's bag with the efficiency of an experienced mother. You know, sometimes the best relationships are the ones that evolve. The doctor commented, the ones that transform into something new, like the hospital, exactly like that ancient wall that is now part of something modern. Alina looked out the window towards the almost finished construction. Tomorrow will be the first time we see the entire pavilion, she said, nervous. No, just curious to see how everything has changed, how we have all changed. Leo yawned in her arms, oblivious to the adults' conversations. Go home, Michaela suggested. Tomorrow will be a long day. Alina nodded and left with Leo, leaving Ben the echo of steps that would soon walk new corridors, built on ancient foundations, but looking towards the future, the promise of a new era. The new gleamed under the morning sun. Guests began to arrive early. Hospital authorities, investors, medical staff. It's beautiful, Alina murmured, holding Leo. Looked at the facade that combined the ancient wall with modern glass. Does of everything work as you expected? Matthew asked, approaching. Better. The new incubator, sir. Perfect. And the parents' area? It was your idea, but you improved it. Leo extended his tiny hands towards Matthew, who hesitated for a moment before smiling at him. You can hold him, Eleanor said. He doesn't bite yet. Matthew carefully took the baby. Leo immediately grabbed his tie. He's strong, he commented, like his mother. Michelle said, joining them. It's time for the speech. Matthew, he returned the baby to Alina and walked towards the podium. The crowd quieted. This building, he began, is not just concrete and glass. It's a promise to every baby born here, to every family waiting in these hallways, to every life that begins within these walls. He paused, looking at the ancient wall. My father taught me that we build more than buildings. We build spaces where life happens, where families are and where love grows, sometimes in ways we don't expect. His eyes met Alina's for a moment. This pavilion is a bridge between the past and the future. Like the wall, we preserved it. Reminds us that some things must remain while others evolve and transform into something new, something better. Leo let out a giggle, breaking the solemnity of the moment. Some people laughed, and that, Matthew concluded with a smile, is the true sound of hope, the sound for which will build the sound of the future. Applause resonated as he cut the ribbon. Ella approached with Leo. It was a good speech, she said. I learned from the best, he replied, looking at his parents in the crowd. You know, Leo will need godparents for his baptism. Matthew looked at her in surprise. Think about it, Alina added before walking away to greet guests who wanted to meet Leo. Matthew remained looking at them, thinking about how sometimes life builds bridges where there were once walls. This is such a profoundly moving story about finding family in unexpected places and healing old wounds. If you were touched by Matthew and Elena's journey, please